You're listening to The Six-Armed Man, Mutants of the Cataclysm Year 22, written by Ken.E.Nielsen and narrated by Wyatt Korell. Chapter 1. Joel only knew two things about vehicles. They ran on gas, and they moved on wheels. But even he could figure out that how his truck had been acting for the last few days was not good. Sputtering and shaking, it slowly made its way through the countryside. The fields to his right long since overgrown with tall snow-covered grass, while the plateau to his right cast long shadows over the road. Joel slammed his fist against the dashboard as the truck rolled to a stop. The vehicle exhaled loudly before the engine died completely. Squeezing the steering wheel in anger, his knuckles turned as white as the thin layer of snow outside. Bending forward, Joel pressed his forehead against the horn, his goggles sliding up into his wavy brown hair. The horn emitted a sad honk before even that gave up. Sighing, Joel pushed the door open and stepped out into the cold air. Looking up towards the plateau, he could see the outline of a road spiraling up behind it. Joel had planned to just drive past the line of trees and down through the small town he could see, continuing further east. Taking a deep breath, Joel trudged to the front of the truck, snow crunching underneath his weathered boots. Small wisps of dark smoke were escaping from both sides of the black hood. Who the fuck thought it was a good idea to put a black hood on a baby blue truck, he could not understand. Who the fuck thought getting a baby blue truck to begin with was a good idea, he didn't understand, period. Lifting the hood, Joel waved his hand to clear the smoke that now billowed into his face. Eyes filling with tears, he tried to peer through the fumes. All he saw down there were pieces of metal. He had no idea what they did. Coughing, Joel slammed down the hood, making the truck dip. Shivering as a gust of cold wind blew past him, Joel pulled his jacket tighter around himself as he hurried to the truck bed. Throwing back the tarp, he grabbed his backpack and slung it over his shoulders, tightening the straps. He knew they'd become loose again in short order. As most things did these days, the straps were old and barely functioning. Even the clothes he wore didn't really fit. They were a couple sizes too big. Joel caught movement in the corner of his eye. He slowly reached his hand into the truck bed, grabbing the only other item in there, a military shovel. What had once been a sharp edge had been dulled by digging, but it should still suffice to cut a man's throat if need be.
"Hello there. Didn't mean to startle you,"
said a man in dark overalls and a cap pulled down as far as it could go, hands raised defensively.
"I heard the horn and saw the smoke and came down to see if I could lend any help."
Joel lowered the shovel to his side. Glancing at the truck, he followed the dark smoke rising in the afternoon sky and swore to himself, "This will be visible for miles."
"Mind if I take a look?"
said the man. He let his hands drop and stepped forward tentatively. "If you want to," Joel grunted, circling away from him while keeping a constant watch on the man's face. It was strangely smooth and pink. At once, he raised the shovel again. The man jumped back, hands raised into the air again, his eyes glued to Joel.
"It's not a mutation. My house caught fire. I was badly burned."
Joel kept the shovel raised.
"For God's sake, I'm too old to be a mutant."
What he said was true. Mutants had only been around for 2 decades, after the cataclysm had brought devastation upon the world. Most of them had a physical deformation of some form, like this overalled man. Mutants also possessed a type of inhuman ability, although some didn't know how to use theirs. Looking him over again, Joel was inclined to believe the man. There was just something about his mannerisms that made him seem old and harmless. He lowered the shovel, motioning with it toward the truck. The man opened the hood, and more smoke came billowing out. He glanced at Joel, or rather the shovel, as he waited for the dark plumes to clear.
"Well, the engine's busted," the man said, leaning further in. "But there are other parts that I could use." He straightened. "I could trade you for some food for the truck and send you on your way."
"I need a new vehicle," Joel said. The man chuckled.
"You want to trade a broken truck for a functional one?"
Joel nodded. "I need it."
"You must be out of your mind."
He studied Joel, as if reevaluating him. His eyes narrowed.
"You are running from something, aren't you?"
Joel didn't answer. He had been careful, covering his face in dirt to look older and even dropped his voice, but he got the feeling that this man saw right through it. The man stepped back. "You're one of them?" He flung a bundle towards Joel, which landed in the snow. "It should last you a few days. Just take it and leave. If you do that right now, I won't say anything to the boss." Joel made no move towards it. "Just take it and go," the man whined. Joel's eyes darted between the bundle and the man. A nasal male voice came from behind Joel. "You were going to let a mutant go without even trying to stop him, Arnold." Joel began to turn around, but he felt a cold metal cylinder pressed into the back of his head. Don't do anything stupid now." Joel heard a click right behind him. He froze. "What would my father say if he knew that you'd let one of them go, Arnold? Do you think he would burn you again?" For a moment, there was only silence. Joel, holding his breath, stared at Arnold, who was cowering. "Answer me." The barrel of the gun dug deeper into Joel's head. "Or do I need to point my gun at you instead?" Joel felt the pressure against his cranium lessen as Arnold squealed and crouched down as if trying to make himself as small as possible. "No, sir. It was just that I didn't know." "You're just a fucking coward," the man spat, his sour breath surrounding Joel's face. He had to stop himself from flinching in revulsion. "I should just shoot you here and now. God only knows how many more of these freaks you have let escape. Or do you want me to believe that this is really your first?" Joel could feel the gun tapping him, but he bit back the impulse to do something. "He's the first I know of," Arnold said. Then he went pale as he realized what he had just done. The tapping stopped. Joel could feel nothing against his head. "I knew you weren't as innocent as you seemed," the nasal voice behind Joel said, taking one step forward. "You've been letting people come and go, taking our food." Another step. "Food that my father has worked hard to gather so the rest of you can eat. And now I learn that he's been feeding a fucking thief?" The gun rose, this time aimed at Arnold, and with one more step, a haggard, stubbled face appeared in Joel's periphery. That was all the incentive Joel needed. Taking one step back, he gripped the shovel hard, swinging for the man's neck. The lack of impact made Joel lose his balance. Seeing how the man stiffened and fell to his knees, though, Joel realized he must have at least struck a glancing blow. Blood trickled from the man's neck. His hand went to the wound, and the crimson fluid pushed its way out from between his fingers. Joel decided that this was as much as he needed to see. With quick strides, he moved, reaching to pick up the bundle Arnold had tossed into the snow, but his fingers only brushed against it. Stumbling, it took him a few steps to find his balance. Then he ran towards the edge of the road. As he closed in on the forest, 2 gunshots rang out, one chipping the bark of the tree just to his left. Joel picked up the pace. In his rush to get away, he did something he'd avoided ever since he'd left the orphanage. He used his mutant ability. Letting his body float off the ground, he shot forward at a greater speed than any human could hope to run. Chapter 2. As soon as the gunshots stopped, Arnold rushed toward the young man. Sliding on the frozen ground, not caring about the smoking barrel waving towards him, he put his hands around the man's neck, trying to stem the flow of blood. "We'll fix you up. Just hold on, young master," Arnold said. He wouldn't have minded if Gerald didn't make it. Everyone here had wished for it at one point or another. But if he died when Arnold was close, he would be the one taking the blame. The gun wavered even more, pointed at nothing, and then fell to the ground, Gerald's hand still clutching it. The eyes that met Arnold's were not filled with fear or pleading, but hatred. Who it was directed towards, he couldn't guess. In the end, it might just be aimed at the world in general. Regardless, they were both still alive. That woke Arnold up. His eyes darted around in search of something that could help save Gerald's life, but he couldn't spot anything. Unless... His eyes stopped at the truck. There might be a rag, gauze, or even duct tape might do. something that could staunch the bleeding. But wouldn't the floating mutant have grabbed it when he left? And even if Arnold went to search for it, Gerald didn't have much time. He wouldn't live long as it was now. Panic set in at that thought. What do I do? If he dies, I'll die as soon as the boss finds out that I was close to him and didn't save him. It won't matter that I tried, only that I failed. Arnold looked towards the trees. Maybe I should just do what he did and run? But he knew that would be futile. If he could have run away, he would have done so years ago. It wasn't as if he joined them by choice. He would be caught and brought back and just be killed in a more brutal way. Going by the boss's cruel sense of humor, he would most likely be burned to death. Gerald hadn't been joking about that. Arnold shuddered just thinking about the concubine who had been executed a month ago. All for commenting, after being forced to spend one night with the boss, how she would never notice something as small as a nail being shoved into her. She'd been wrong. Every nail that had been forcefully pressed into her body made her scream until she finally died. Arnold had become used to keeping his head down and just focusing on surviving. That was all anyone could do since the cataclysm. But after the executions, it was hard. He had survived by stealing and robbing before he'd been put into service for the boss as a mechanic. And at least being a mechanic let him focus on what he enjoyed while other people did the robbing. Helping the people who passed through here also helped to ease his conscience. Arnold's thoughts were broken as his hands became warm. Looking down at Gerald, the life in his eyes had begun to dim, and his body grew hot. Too hot. Arnold released his grip on Gerald's neck and scrambled backwards. Dark smoke gathered around Gerald, clinging to his body. It began to solidify, forming a dark shell. Getting to his feet, Arnold watched smoke cover Gerald. It was a fascinating process to observe, strangely beautiful. But realizing what he was witnessing made his heart sink. It was a cocoon. They formed around Stage 1 mutants, and in either a few hours or a few days, depending on luck, a Stage 2 mutant would hatch. If that happened in just hours, a monster, scientifically called false Stage 2 mutant, would appear, and it would go on a rampage throughout the entire area. This was the biggest reason why mutants were so feared and often killed on sight. However, if it took days to hatch, a demon, scientifically called a true Stage 2 mutant, would appear instead. If that happened, Arnold would have a chance to reason with it, and it might help him escape. Only time would tell. But for that to happen, he needed to be here when the cocoon hatched. In the meantime, Arnold had to find a way to hide for a few days. He shook his head. That wouldn't happen. His hope was quickly ripped away. Defeated, he went to the truck and let himself in. If it were a false Stage 2 mutant that appeared, Arnold would at least have the hope to die a quick and painless death.